I think this is a lot within Okotoks, right? We've got a community to be proud of, and yes, we have some work to do.
Yeah.
But I think we do have a really strong community and a good feel here.
Yes, I do believe that as well. And obviously as a realtor and as, someone that, I interviewed everybody in the municipal elections, the people running for mayor, the people running for council, and then talk to a lot of people too. And the big concern is growth here in town, right? And I do feel that the people are concerned of losing that closeness, that the way that it was, right? And and I think it's just finding ways, avenues like this that we can almost train the new people that are coming to town. That it's nice to say hi on the pathways, right? Like that's one thing I noticed in the last few years of how that's changed. You say hi, and I'm like, okay, speaking with the hearing, I wonder if people like, okay, did that person not hear me? Like I said hi to that person, like you're crossing them on the pathway, or are they just not used to a small town feel?
Yeah.
And there is ways I think that we can constantly give ourselves reminders, right? And I've talked about this on the podcast as well. Even the way people honk their horns these days has completely changed in the last 5, 6, 8 years here. Because before it's just like, hey, like, come on. But now it's
there's an anger.
Yeah, there's an anger because there's not there's a less chance that you're going to know that person that did that. So it's in the core group of understanding. Can we keep the small town feel small?
Welcome back to Hear Me Out with Belinda. Today, we have our first crossover episode with the Okotoks Podcast. So welcome to the studio, Carlin.
Thank you, Belinda. It's great to be in here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun conversation today.
Absolutely. And congratulations on your 26th episode.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
For me, I started my podcast to create awareness for hearing loss and people wanting to look for information on, the better hearing journey and everything.
Yeah.
And then it just developed into hearing above the noise. So more, healthcare and now, community focus, right? Those community connections. But what about yourself? Tell me a bit about yourself and when did you move to Okotoks?
Oh, geez. Yeah. We moved to Okotoks in 2010. So we've been here for a while. My daughter was just a year and a half when we moved here. And we were looking in South Calgary. Thought, I was working in not quite downtown Calgary, but thought it would be nice to have a short commute to work. But then we came to Okotoks, looked at houses, and realized that this was where we wanted to be. We'd like the small town feel, and the houses were further apart than they were in Calgary. So we moved here and fell in love with it.
Yeah, I think that happens to a lot of us when we move to Okotoks. We fall in love with that small town. And then when did you become a realtor?
That was right around the same time. When I moved to Okotoks, I was just in the process of getting my license, and I've had it for 15 years. So basically, as long as my wife and I have been living in Okotoks, I've been in real estate.
And do you specialize within the Okotoks area, or?
It's all over. It's all the foothills, whether it's acreages, single family homes, condos, but I do a lot of work in Calgary as well.
Okay.
Cochrane, it's you kind of go wherever the work is.
I guess.
Yeah.
And then you started the Okotoks podcast, I believe it was last April.
Yes, we've just had our anniversary episode released last Tuesday. So,
and the anniversary meaning
1 year, one year of podcasting.
Okay.
So I think we're well over. I think we're like 58 podcasts because there's every once in a while we would release 2 podcasts in a week. But we try to keep it weekly. But yeah.
And so, what is your focus on the Okotoks podcast?
Yeah, I guess the reason why I first got it started was I was always going on Spotify or Apple or even YouTube, just type in Okotoks just to see if there was some kind of conversations about Okotoks. Not looking for anything specific. There was, there's certainly a lot of churches came up when I would do that for, churches putting their preaching on there or whatever. But I was looking for something that would just give me the not the Coles Notes version of what was going on, but the long form chat about whether it's growth or highlighting businesses or, just Okotoks talk, local talk. Because here in Okotoks, we get a lot of, Calgary news. We get the Calgary radio stations. Fortunately, we have the Eagle here in town. But if you're looking for a news source, there's not a lot of audio form or video form.
Right, because we do have the Western Wheel.
Yes.
So they do have the newspaper delivered and then the online version. But you're right, the audio, that's tough because
Yes.
we do have the radio station.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think, do you feel like, what is the Okotoks is a bedroom community where a lot of people still commute to Calgary? Do you still think that that's true?
Yeah, I think it's slowly changing. I think more and more people are finding, work locally or working from home. That's still thanks to COVID. There was actually some good that came out of COVID, is that people realized that they could work from home, and businesses realized that, and people could work efficiently, right? So I think we do see more and more people staying. I think, 15 years ago, there was a ton of people where Okotoks actually, the infrastructure, it was easier on the infrastructure because people weren't driving in town. They were driving to Calgary, spending the day there, and then coming back, right? So now I do think there has been a little bit of a shift where people are waking up to the fact that Okotoks is not just a bedroom community to Calgary anymore. It has its own identity, and it always has.
Yeah.
It's whether people choose to find it or not.
Yeah. I opened the business 5 years ago, and then my family moved just over 2 years ago, and my youngest son went to school here. And so I think if you immerse yourself in the community, the community does sort of embrace you, right? There's lots to do within the Okotoks community.
Yeah,
You don't need to drive to Calgary for anything, really.
No, unless you want to go to a Flames game or, some kind of sporting event or, a big mall for sure. And then for us as a family, it's a little bit of an event. We're going to go to the mall, right? So we all go together and away we go, right? But yeah, we have Costco, Walmart. What more do you need, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about the podcast. Like, what are some of your favorite episodes?
Yeah, well, it feels like it's evolving a little bit. Sometimes I feel like I'm going down a road that I don't necessarily want to go inside of certain conversations, but it's almost like at times the conversation just takes you. Either people reach out to you, they want to come on the podcast to discuss something. But I wanted to do it to highlight businesses. But I think in order to highlight businesses, I don't know if I would do an effective job just only doing highlights on businesses every week. I feel that there needs to be some draw. So, for example, this week on Tuesday, we're releasing a podcast with Kelly Rudy. Now, Kelly Rudy has done some work with Okotoks Nissan. For those of you that don't know who Kelly Rudy is, he's on Hockey Night in Canada. He played in the NHL for 3 different teams, I believe. And so he comes into town quite regularly to help Okotoks Nissan. So I had him on, and we just talked about his career. But at the end of the podcast, and it's those types of moments that I long for inside of the podcast when he started to talk about his issues with mental health. And he's very transparent about it. And the level of connection that I felt with him as a guest, like, his hockey career, he even says this, like, talking about his hockey career was okay, but his passion is now talking about mental health. He saw his daughter go through some struggles. And then his daughter has created this charity where it's called More Good Days, because one day when she was 16 years old, she came home and told her parents, hey, I'm having more good days than bad days. And so that charity started with that slogan. And it's those types of moments. It's also the Richard Cowpersmith, somebody that is local to Okotoks, but he opens up his garage on Thursday nights for men to come. Well, you hear that and like, okay, like come and do what?
Is that the men's shack?
Yeah.
It is the men's shack. I didn't know there was an Okotoks.
I don't think they officially call it the men's shack, but I think it's something very similar. They just open up the doors. Hey, let's sit down. Let's, drink some coffee. Let's, hang out and let's just talk.
And if you don't hear about it, hear about it on a podcast, how else would you know about it?
Yeah, I found out about it through Facebook. Like Richard
Okay.
would post it on Facebook. And you know what? That podcast was one of my most downloaded podcasts because I
Yeah.
think people are looking for connection. People are looking for a place that they can be real, be open and honest and share,
Yeah.
right? I think a lot of men really struggle quietly with mental health. And unfortunately, it does lead uh, men and then families, they're falling along as well, down some pretty dark paths.
Yeah. I've worked with the Foothills Community Coalition. We've been chatting about having this youth hub in Okotoks. We've been fighting with various levels of government. The town of Okotoks is very much on board with it,
Yeah.
and we have the superintendent from the Foothills School Division who's really also a driving force behind. He really sees it in the schools and the need for it. And then just going back to the same thing, when government meets in Edmonton, they just think that, Okotoks is so close to Calgary, why do they need something? But they don't realize it's like crossing the ocean, for youth. And so you're right, I believe there is a mental health crisis, not just in Okotoks, but in everywhere.
Yeah.
I think women, I don't know, maybe because we always have, we talk about it more. And and not to say every woman talks about it, because I think there are a lot of women that are silently struggling themselves. But I do think it's the men. And I'll go back to, my husband, we got brought up in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Mhm.
And it was definitely even for women, like mental health is not a real thing. It was, suck it up, buttercup, what's wrong with you? Just get on and do it. Everything was just brushed aside. There was no such things as feelings. It was just get up and do it. And so I think then as an older male, yes, my husband is very evolved and he's very much looking at things, but there's still that part of him, I think, that wonders whether he'd be judged, or what will somebody else think?
Yeah.
And then and you got to be a strong man. You got to be the breadwinner, and I think there's still a little bit of a stigmatism or expectation by society on men, from a young age.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, you got to be rough. You got to tough. Boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Come on, suck it up, right? You don't do that.
Yeah.
Like you're 13 years old. You don't cry. You're 15 years old. Like, come on, like, what are you doing? Like, and that's looked upon as a negative thing. And, yeah, I do believe that, men are very tied. Their identity is tied by their income, how much money they're making. Can they provide? Are they providing? If they can't, do they even feel like a real man? Right.
Yeah.
And those are very, very real things, especially in the times that we're in right now, where finances are, you look at gas prices, you look at grocery prices, you look at insurance prices, as we were talking before we started to record. All these things being bombarded at you. And okay, well, what's next? How do you do it? How do you cope? And then it's the coping. And how do we cope as a society? What things are pushed upon us, And there's so many different things that people can turn to. Some good, but a lot of bad, right?
Yeah.
You look at, drugs, alcohol. And the big one now is the whole gambling crisis that we're under. We're being bombarded by all these advertisements for, all these athletes promoting gambling. And it was something that I went to Vegas once and me and my wife were pulling this. It was like amazing. Like we put in like $5 and we got it up to like $196. And people are looking at us thinking we won the jackpot because we're hooting and hollering about. But that's really the only time that I've ever experienced gambling, and you could realize, holy crap. Then we brought it down. I wanted to keep going. I brought it down to 176 and we cashed out. Right. That's the only time that I've really caught the wave as to what gambling can do. And it's a real crisis. So now you're dealing with mental health issues. You're turning to these different things that cost money, and, you're losing money as a result. And it's just stuff that adds another layer to potentially the mental health issues that people are facing already.
I think that could be such a, we may have to save that deeper conversation for a different time, because I think when you're touching on gambling and the amount of advertisements out there, it goes back to why, why aren't citizens being protected, right? Like we know we have a mental health crisis, yet there's so many advocates, saying that this is the next big thing. You can win $1 million, right? This is going to be the easy button for you. And so it can be addictive, just like any, drug or alcohol, kind of things. So I agree. But let's switch it back.
Yeah, for sure.
To the positives within
Yes.
Okotoks. So, because I always like to look at that. So for mental health, I know we have the GTFO.
Yes.
And they are really, really big. We also had them on the show here
Yes,
about
I saw that one as well.
going
It was very good.
outside. And obviously the Men's Shack. Well, it's not called the Men's Shack, but there is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also work with, I go a lot to the Foothills Wellness Retreat.
Okay.
I do a lot of their sandbars, and they actually do run men's only retreats as
Okay.
well. So I
Yeah.
think that that's a really, really good alternate for
Yes.
some as well. And what else are you aware of within the local community?
Of other things for people to, like, for men to go to?
Yeah.
Other than those things, I know that like churches have a lot of great things going on, great programs as well. Like, you talked about grief a few weeks back on your show, which was a great episode as well. I know that, and I believe it's a non-religious one, but I think there's a church in town that does the grief share, where they just bring people together for whatever it is that you're grieving, whether it's someone that has passed away. It could even be a pet, or it could be, something, your house burned down, you're grieving that loss, right? And they treat everybody the same, no matter what you're grieving with, and they walk through in community. And I think that's the big part, is being able to walk in community. It's the isolation. It's the isolation that really takes you further down a path, right?
And the scrolling, right? Because the more you scroll, the more isolated you feel.
Yes. Yeah, you start thinking something, you search something up, and then all of a sudden your algorithm is, feeding your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And that's a very dangerous thing too, because social media, it would be amazing if something happened where just all social media just died for 2 days.
Yeah, that would be great. Just a complete reset.
Yeah.
Yeah, people would have to talk to each other.
No.
We'd have to get back to that family night debate on things,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
I know I've always been very pro sitting down for dinner and talking, and my kids learned from a young age that we can debate anything. They're entitled to their own opinions, but they're not allowed to pick an opinion. If they want to disagree with me, they need to back it up, right? So don't just disagree with me to disagree with me, but back up and tell me why we have a different opinion, right? So I think part of it, and I think this is why I love the podcast as well, is we've lost that ability to have dialogue with someone we disagree with.
Yes.
Right? And I think it starts right in with the family. I think, like you said, COVID, good and bad, I think it was very polarizing for many families, for many friendships. And I'm not sure we found our way back to each other yet.
No, it's really weird, because I feel that in some situations, I do have the ability to look at both sides, right? Like if you look at COVID, for example, and you look at the nurses, the healthcare professionals, the ones that were seeing the people come in and seeing the deaths. Well, those people were like, yeah, let's do whatever we can to stop this. And then there was the people that their way of life had changed during those times when things had stopped. And they were very upset. They were so upset that they were willing to risk, getting sick or not going without the jab, and they made that decision themselves. But there's two sides to every story. There's a different angle to look at things and saying, yeah, I understand. My sister's a nurse, so I was able to get it from her. Like, okay, this is a very real thing. But then I had a friend that was a truck driver that could no longer work because of, having to go cross-border, or couldn't go cross-border, or whatever. And just how damaging things are, as a result of, and then not being able to
talk about it.
To talk about it and say, yeah, you know what, I understand where you're coming from.
And both sides. Yeah. That's the whole thing. And I think it goes with anything, not just with
anything.
COVID.
No. But the thing about COVID is, like, I long for those days like that. Like, if we had a week where we had to stay home and all we did was family stuff, like when COVID was happening, I'd say to the kids, hey, do you guys want to go for a bike ride? Yeah, let's do it. Let's go for a walk. Let's walk the dogs. Let's do this. And it was the back to the basics. It was the simple things. So would have been awesome if we could have had a social media reset during that same time.
Yes. Well, I think COVID did a lot of damage to certain age groups as well, right? Because I think particularly with my teenage son, we taught them to go out online for their connections. And now you have a bunch of, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids that are addicted to not just video games, but also the scrolling, which once again contributes to that mental health crisis. So, like being indoors, and we were telling them, just meet your friends online, like make that connection with them. But now they don't know how to meet in person. They don't know how to grab a ball and meet at the soccer field anymore because they weren't taught that. In those key years, they were online. Right?
Yeah,
So
it is
it's
so
really
strange,
tricky.
right? Like, no doubt when you were a kid and when I was a kid, we'd play baseball all the time with our friends, like after school, or we'd, once the winter hit and the ice rinks were out, we were out skating with our friends. We'd be there, we'd be playing, it wouldn't be like I said to my kids the other day, like, would it be weird if you phoned up your friends and said, do you want to meet at the ball diamond and play ball? I'm like, yeah, my girls love playing ball, but they've never gone to the baseball, diamond and just phone up their friends and said, hey, let's meet here and play just for fun. I'm like, what? It's weird. Just for fun?
Yeah. And then I think that's going back to like the small town feel, like a smaller community. I think that's what we need to get back to slowly but surely, and maybe it's going to take your girls, with your encouragement to reach out first, and then maybe somebody else will hear about it and they'll reach out for a soccer game or something, and maybe that's how we, make those small changes within our own communities, is somebody almost being brave enough, putting themselves out there, being willing to be rejected almost, because I think that's what the fear is. What if they say no? What if they laugh at the idea? And that goes for adults as well, right? We don't reach out to someone to say, hey, let's meet for coffee or go for a walk, because what if they don't want to? What if they don't like me? What if they say no, right? It's easier just to like a post on Facebook or, something like that, rather than trying to make that personal connection. But I do think from the people I talk to, we're craving that connection. So it's just taking one or two brave members to reach out and slowly, and that's why Okotoks is great for that community connection, right?
What do you mean by craving? Like what? Like are you suggesting people are staying at home and they're basically isolating themselves and they don't know how to reach out to anybody
I think
anymore?
so. Yeah, I think that there is a lot of people that are struggling with creating connections, right? And that they want it, but either due to their own history of trauma or being, rejected in school or high school or university or a friend circle or COVID because they had a different belief system, they are very much afraid to reach out. So always go back to find those places where everyone's welcome, so go back to the Rotary Club where once again, everybody's welcome there, so just find little places within the community that everyone's welcome, and you can start making those little connections, get away from your screen, get off social media.
One of the greatest businesses in town that I feel makes those connections is Hubtown Brewery. Just what they do there, right? They're always having a great time. They're either playing cornhole or they set up a curling rink, or they do a great job of community. The Elks Club, right? Like Lions Club, like all those different clubs. Like, my exposure to Rotary this last, into just before Christmas and then into January and the Robbie Burns night, like what a great group of people, passionate people. They care about this community greatly. Honestly, it doesn't seem like there's any big personalities, like people that it's all about me, and it's a team, and love stories like what the Rotary is doing as well.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, you mentioned some other service clubs as well, right? And so, I always go back to, if Rotary is not for you, there's a different service club. Go find your place somewhere, but just connect with people. I always say, like, that's the big message is get back to basics, right? If you want a good community, start connecting with your community and then learning how to build together.
Yeah. And, like kids' sports teams do that for so many different families as well, right? They connect them to the community and they feel a part of something. And sometimes my wife and I were talking the other day, it was just like, okay, who's this who's this more for? Is it for the kids or is it actually for the parents, right? Because and I'm saying that as a positive thing, that sports for kids really can connect parents. It can also go the the other way pretty quick too, but it's very valuable to the strength of the community.
That's right. And we do have a lot of great sport options as well here in Okotoks, going back to we don't need to drive into Calgary.
No.
I think sometimes they compete within Calgary or Greater Foothills area, but you can practice or just be part of a team here locally, which is amazing.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I think this is a lot within Okotoks, right? We've got a community to be proud of. And yes, we have some work to do. Yeah. But I think we do have a really strong community and a good feel here.
Yes, I do believe that as well. And obviously as a realtor and as, someone that, I interviewed everybody in the municipal elections, the people running for mayor, the people running for council, and then talk to a lot of people too. And the big concern is growth here in town, right? And I do feel that the people are concerned of losing that closeness, that the way that it was, right? And, and I think it's just finding ways, avenues like this that we can almost train the new people that are coming to town, that it's nice to say hi on the pathways, right? Like that's one thing I noticed in the last few years of how that's changed. You say hi and I'm like, okay, speaking with the hearing, I wonder if people like, okay, did that person not hear me? Like I said hi to that person, like, you're crossing them on the pathway, or are they just not used to a small town feel? Yeah. And there is ways I think that we can constantly give ourselves reminders, right? And I've talked about this on the podcast as well. Even the way people honk their horns these days has completely changed in the last 5, 6, 8 years here, because before it's just like, hey, like, come on. But now it's,
there's an anger.
Yeah, there's an anger because there's there's a less chance that you're going to know that person that did that. So it's in the core group of understanding, can we keep the small town feel small, right? Like before I got to the studio today, there was a gentleman walking past, and normally, a lot of people wouldn't talk, but I said something to him, and man, he started to talk, right? And I think people are looking for that. And then he asked me a question as to where the tell a story, small things like that just kind of create that small town feel, and keeping that role. Smile, say hi. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Carlin, this was absolutely awesome. Thank you for coming on the show and for chatting with me today.
Yeah. No, this was great.
And I look forward to hearing your next podcast, especially on Tuesday, I think you said.
Yes, on Tuesday, for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you again.
Yes.